Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Once Upon a Time at the Oscars. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Once Upon a Time at the Oscars.
The show that takes you through every Best Picture nominee from 1927 to today.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm Ryan.
And to be...
Or not to be. That's what I asked earlier today when I was trying to choose which channel to watch on my Roku.
Yeah, and then you said, well, do they have the right score? Who knows? Is it at this point, that's a deep cut.
That is a deep cut.
So,
our real heads out there, that was for you.
Yeah.
Our Seventh Heaven fans out there. We're back. And we're talking about the Chloe Zhao movie, Hamnet.
yes.
Which was very much based on William Shakespeare's life. Just to tie the to be or not to be together.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. How are you? Wow,
good.
We never do this.
We never do this. We never ask each other about how we're doing. I asked because I know you just recently watched Frankenstein a second time.
I did.
On at home. So I'm just, that's my reach out to your friends.
Yeah,
Check on your friends thing.
I'm hanging in there.
I appreciate that. I'm good. I'm glad to hear that.
Oh, I was like...
let's just skip over your thing. I'm
Yeah.
good. No, I meant I'm glad. Sorry.
Good.
To hear that you're good.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Thanks for asking. I just told you I was watching Ready or Not last night.
Yeah.
Getting ready for the sequel coming out in March. Actually, just got moved up.
Did it?
It was March 27th, and now it's March 20th.
I'm excited for that.
I might be making that number up, but it's March.
That's okay.
I'm very
It'll
excited.
Change by the time this comes out.
It will.
I like some arrow
Hopefully
leaving.
movie theaters are around.
Why would you say that? That's so sad.
Well, the good news is that there are movies that can make you feel inspired for the human connection of theaters, and that is a really good metaphor for what we're talking about today.
Absolutely. I just got emotional because I thought about that moment, and I'm like,
Yeah. Well, it's worth mentioning, too, that I made a video on the Instagram, TikTok, I think it was posted everywhere, shortly after the news came out that Netflix had won the bid for Warner Brothers.
Right.
And I made that video in the parking lot having just seen Hamnet. And we'll talk about it, but there's a sequence in Hamnet that specifically just very much was like, wow, that was extremely relevant to what we're talking about right now. Although it might not seem it. On face value, it might seem like a very strange thing to say, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Let's get there now.
Let's do it. Well, we'll be on our way. I don't think we're going to start at the end.
Right. Hamnet, 2025, was directed by Chloe Zhao. This was starring Jessie Buckley as Agnes Shakespeare, Paul Mescal as William Shakespeare, Jacoby Jupe as Hamnet, the title character. This also starred Emily Watson.
Joe Alwyn.
Okay.
Joe Alwyn was Bartholomew, Agnes's brother.
Gotcha.
But that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So, which is funny because we'll talk about it, but this got the casting nomination, and I feel like I had a much longer list for like Frankenstein, for example. Tell me what this was nominated for.
Oh, so this was nominated for 8 total nominations, including original score by Max Richter, costume design by Malgosia Terzanska, production design by Fiona Crombie and Alice Felton, best casting, Nina Gold. We'll talk about that. Best Adapted Screenplay by Chloe Zhao and Maggie O'Farrell, who wrote the original novel. Best Actress, Jessie Buckley. Best Director, Chloe Zhao. And Best Picture.
Yeah. And Best Picture goes to the producers. I do want to point out
yes.
Quite a few of them. Liza Marshall, Pippa Harris, Nicholas Gonda, Sam Mendes, and Steven Spielberg. Which
Couple names you know.
Yeah. Big deal with Spielberg. I'll just get this out of the way. This nomination gave him the record now for most nominated person as a producer for Best Picture.
So not even just like for all the times that he's written or directed a movie, but specifically produced.
Right.
Interesting.
He's had 14 nominations as producer for Best Picture. So.
You know who I suspect will be there at some point? Emma Stone.
Yes.
She does a lot of producing work and trying to keep people on movies. So
yeah,
hopefully
absolutely.
We'll see her at some point there as well, breaking that record.
100%. Weird, this is the first time we're talking about Steven Spielberg.
Isn't it nice, though?
Yeah.
Hopefully next year we get to do a similar thing with Disclosure Day, although I suspect that's going to be specifically summer summer type movie. But
Yeah.
hopefully we get a chance to talk about him again.
I'm sure we will.
Last chance we did at the Oscars was that was it Bridge of Spies?
Yeah, was it?
I mean, Bridge of Spies, certainly he was nominated because it won Best Supporting Actor.
He did The Post. Did that come after Bridge of Spies?
I think The Post was before.
I don't think it was because I've never seen Bridge of Spies, but I've seen The Post for The Death Race.
I'll look into it.
Okay.
But either way,
yeah.
huge nomination or huge name in the Oscars. So very cool to be talking about him again.
Yeah, and that's really all we'll talk about because I just wanted to throw out that record set for him.
It is worth mentioning he did read Maggie O'Farrell's novel. And when he was thinking about bringing this to the big screen, his first thought was the person who could really bring the natural, blending the natural with the, for lack of a better word, supernatural, maybe the more mystic sense of things, would be Chloe Zhao. So
Nice.
Important to note that this is a follow-up for Chloe from, she did the Eternals for Marvel.
Right.
But also she was mentioned, she's very relevant to the Oscars, the Academy Awards, because she was nominated and won for Nomadland.
Yes.
2021?
Yes, 2021. Big deal there because she won not only Best Picture, but she won the Academy Award for Best Director, making her the second of 3 women to win the Best Director award.
Kind of busted.
Yeah. What do you say?
I mean,
to that?
cool, but also like, that sucks.
It does suck. It does suck. So, Ryan, tell us a little bit about the plot of Hamnet.
I would be happy to, or right after I eat some crow. The Post was 2017 and Bridge of Spies was 2015, so well done.
Okay.
You were right.
Guys, you can't see at home. I'm flossing.
He is flossing right now. Amazing he can talk with that in his mouth. So, Hamnet, here's the synopsis for Hamnet. I guess this is what's funny about this movie. I guess major spoilers, but not really. This is the plot of the movie. After losing their son Hamnet to plague, Agnes and William Shakespeare grapple with grief in 16th century England. A healer, Agnes must find strength to care for her surviving children while processing her devastating loss. This is an interesting movie to talk about because I think whenever you tell people like, oh yeah, well, William Shakespeare's son dies, everyone's like, whoa, hold on. What are you talking about? Like, that's a spoiler. That's the plot.
Yeah.
That's what happens in this movie. Granted, it's about halfway through that we see this happen, but that is very much the driving force of the movie.
Totally. We did the same thing with Frankenstein. What is your familiarity with Shakespeare?
I think just about the same as everyone else. I never really did too much of a deep dive. A lot of reading in high school of his works. And then, over time, there's been a lot of productions that have been done off of his work.
Yeah.
Specifically, I think one of my favorite versions is Joss Whedon did a black and white rendition of Much Ado About Nothing. In like 2013, 2014, something like that. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a really fun retelling. It was one thing I liked about that movie a lot is he kept the script the same. So it takes place at like a party in like Hollywood Hills or Beverly Hills in like early 2010s, but he kept the script the same.
Yeah.
So the old English is still recited, but the way that they use it is in like more modern day like situations, but the script stays the same, right? Like the words and everything. I thought that was really well done, and it didn't feel like hokey to hear like Nathan Fillion like say some of these things, Felicia Day, his normal like cast and crew. But I mean, that's not the only time that we've seen Shakespeare in theaters, like whether it be like Shakespeare himself or his works. Obviously, Hamlet is a very big one. That's what we'll talk about here today. But I would say no more familiar than the average person. What about you?
I feel like I don't want to say this is a blind spot, but I'm almost ashamed and embarrassed at my lack of Shakespeare knowledge.
You could probably say the same for me.
Obviously, just the biggest name of any writer probably in history, I would say. Like I listened to Kyle MacLachlan's podcast, and he's like a big theater boy, and he constantly he's bringing up like, oh yeah, I did this Shakespeare play in this year and blah blah blah, and he'll recite Shakespeare just on the fly. If you were to ask me what my favorite Shakespeare play is, I would have zero answer for you. I do not know. I'm not that person that can just like pull them out and be like, oh, I like this one and that one and blah, blah, blah. And that bums me out. I want to get more into that. So I'm excited that we get to talk about kind of an interpretation of the origin of Shakespeare in a way and the importance of his work as a whole, which I think this movie, that's kind of the point. Not the origin of Shakespeare, but like what his works mean to people.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because Shakespeare really is more of a vehicle in this movie than anything.
Yes.
He is kind of what keeps the plot, not keeps the plot, but like keeps the narrative going. It's hard to say. I think people come for Shakespeare, but they're going to stay for something else because this movie isn't about Shakespeare.
No.
Right? It's not about William and everything he's doing. It's kind of like a B plot. And the B plot is interesting. We'll get into this here, but it really is both in and off screen. I should say on and off screen. It really is Agnes's movie, but it's Jessie Buckley's movie. Like she is really absolutely driving this movie both narratively on screen and off screen. When we talk about this, it really is the conversation around Jessie Buckley. And that's because we're introduced to Agnes in this movie as, we'll say Agnes, just in case I'm off on this, but I do believe they said Agnes in the movie. We really do get introduced to her like in the woods. Right. We see that she is a mystic. She has a connection with like speaking to the earth, whether it be like through the trees. There's a hole underneath a tree in the woods that she sees a little later on, that there's like a very like strange presence that you can feel from her in this. And she always has kind of like this reputation in the town to be someone who can kind of read you from like just holding your hand. And very early on, we see her making a connection with William, who happens to be a tutor for a family. Is it her? It's her family.
Yes.
Her brothers.
Yeah.
And he very early on gets distracted by her beauty and wants to speak with her. So what we see very much is their relationship together, much to the disappointment and displeasure of both her and his family. His family wants him to be something more than what he wants to be, right? More than a tutor, more than just a writer, which he is also tends to be, but not well known at this point. I won't get into the nitty gritty of it, but specifically they do form a relationship, and more so she becomes pregnant. And this forces them to live together, and she starts to see how plagued by his own talent or genius that he is. Right. He really has to like drink sort of in order to like deal with the frustrations of like what it is to write. And he's not inspired by his surroundings. Needs to be somewhere where it makes sense for him to write. So the first half of this movie, you really almost are tricked into thinking that it might be about Paul Mescal's performance as William Shakespeare. I kind of want to pause there. What do you think about Paul Mescal in this movie?
I like him a lot. I think he's kind of a reserved character in this.
Sure.
It's a reserved performance overall, especially in comparison to Jessie Buckley's performance. But I think that it needs to be because, again, you've described it as Jessie Buckley's movie. This is the story of her character. So Paul Mescal, like, really, he is in the background. His story is in the background, and you're intrigued just enough to be like, what is he working on? Like, I know I'm one of the people who was like, oh, Hamnet, this must be about Shakespeare and Hamlet.
Yeah.
And then when I got to the movie and like he's finally reciting Shakespeare, I'm like, okay, this is about Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where like I'm embarrassed to admit, but yeah, Paul Mescal, he's great in this. He's just not the highlight.
I thought so too. I thought he was very good. There's a scene specifically where he has writer's block and he had been drinking and he wakes up Agnes and their child, and he's just so frustrated. And I love it because I believe it's a one take and it's just him, but you can see the bed in the background of Agnes getting out of bed and coming to console him. And he's just so like frustrated. It's almost like a child. Like he's so frustrated with like everything that's in his head and he just can't get it out. And that's really the determining factor of, hey, I have to go to London. And I have to go to London and be around, you know, the city and like, you know, other people and be inspired to write. And he does that at a time where she's pregnant again. And she's actually pregnant with twins. So I'm skipping over this a little bit. When she was first pregnant, I think their oldest daughter is Susanna. When they were first pregnant, she actually gives birth in the woods around this tree. I talked about this hole, and that's like her being like one with the earth.
Yes.
And there's a mysticism to this movie that isn't really talked about in the trailers.
Right.
And I kind of like that. I think there's some things hidden in this movie in the trailers that I really enjoyed watching unfold in real time. Now, what I will say is, while this is Jessie Buckley's performance, I think that this movie does suffer from, there's not a ton going on for the first like hour or so. There's a narrative point that's very important that we'll get to here. It's what I mentioned in the synopsis. But you are watching these relationships, and it's important for you to be piecing together like little details about their relationship, because there's an event that happens later on that I'm very excited to talk about with you. But it is building to that moment.
Right.
So otherwise you really are living in like it's almost like I forget what the word is, but it's like a hang movie of sorts, where it's like you're kind of just hanging out with Agnes and Will for the most part. And it's not the most, it's not very, there's not a ton of humor, right? There's not a ton of like events that happen. There's not a ton of like, there's no set pieces.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true. But like, for the majority, there's no set pieces. So there's really nothing to kind of keep you fully engaged through this.
Yeah, this is one of those things where I feel like knowledge of Shakespeare would help.
Sure.
And I do think that if I watched this a second time and I kind of knew what was coming, and I wasn't sitting there like, all right, let's get moving, let's do something, and I just kind of embraced what it was. I think the cool thing is that this movie, although it is not about Shakespeare, you could pull back far enough and be like, this is a story of the things that inspired Shakespeare's work.
Yes.
So at the beginning, you get a romance. It's pretty much a straight romance, and a lot of like, well, our families don't want us together. Romeo and Juliet.
Yep.
A lot of the mysticism and things shows up in a lot of Shakespeare's work with witches and magic and things.
And there's the witches in Hamlet.
Exactly. And I think that's cool to be able to say like, well, this isn't about Shakespeare. Paul Mescal, he goes off to London, and then this is about Jessie Buckley, but you're still getting these things that inspired Shakespeare. And then in turn, you get to see how he used those things to create works that inspired you.
Right.
I don't remember how we just got to what I was saying.
Well,
but,
it's important because there's a lot of inspiration, right? He takes from like his at least the novel will suggest, Maggie O'Farrell's novel will suggest that he took a lot of these things that happened in his life as inspirations to his work, right? So as he travels off, he's in London, and Jessie Buckley is left with Will's mother, her mother-in-law, and she, in childbirth, delivers one child completely fine, but then her second child is actually, correct me if I'm wrong on the term here, but I believe it's stillbirth, correct? Like the child was not alive when they were born. A very difficult scene. This is obviously the beginning of where we start seeing the real like performance from Jessie Buckley.
Yeah.
The grief that she has in this movie is unreal. And this scene specifically, I think what she's doing as like a mystic of like begging the earth to like bring life back to her child is heartbreaking. And this scene specifically is really, really, really hard. Not just to watch, but also just like mostly for Jessie. Like this is such a difficult scene for them to portray. Also incredibly important is that the child does begin breathing again.
Yeah.
So we have like, I think that this is the first time where we've kind of seen that mysticism, like maybe there's something to this, right? Otherwise, is it just a connection? She just feels like, hey, I really like the earth. I really like the woods. Like I love birds. Like, is there really something mystic happening? This is where you start like actually kind of questioning like, well, hold on.
Yeah.
Is there something more to this character than just like, a sensibility she may have?
And even if you take it as no,
like just a
there's,
miracle.
There's no magic or anything. Like this is just a coincidence.
Right.
This leads so much into, or builds so much into this character, which in turn, again, leads to William just being like, okay, well, my wife's magic, and this inspires all of this. But yeah, that scene, it's so heartbreaking, and then you feel so much better and such a relief when things work out. But then that in turn, as we move forward with the story, because now she has saved a child.
Yes.
With her spirituality and her connection to the earth and all of this. When tragedy strikes again and she's unable to do the same, this really, I think, kind of exponentially blows up her grief at the spoiler, the death of Hamnet.
Right. I mean, and that's what it's based on. I think, this scene is remarkable, and it's easily worth the work, or worth the I'm breaking the fourth wall a little bit here. When we talk about the Oscars, I always think one thing that I love is when I really love a performance, I'll start thinking to myself, well, what's the clip they're going to use when they introduce this actress or this actor? What clip are they going to use? And I think this scene is an easy layup for them, but it's also kind of like take your pick. Like there's so many other scenes in this movie where she's just absolutely heartbreaking to watch perform. I think this scene is a very good possibility because it's the easiest to show her grief that she feels in this, but also it speaks to that mysticism. But you're right. Hamnet does pass, but this isn't the moment. This is where she first meets these characters, or meets her children. So we fast forward in time. Mm-hmm. We see their three children: Susanna, Hamnet, and Judith. Hamnet and Judith are twins. At this point, Will is an established playwright, right? He's known. Everyone knows he goes off to London for weeks, months at a time, and comes home to see his children. And there's a little bit of resentment, right? Just a little bit of resentment on Agnes's part because she's not able to go and she is there with the children, and that's fine. It's not a big deal. She really wants to be with the kids, but she wants Will present as well.
Yeah.
And it's not until that Judith gets sick that things start taking a turn. And Judith is sick. They're concerned. It's not really clear whatever happened. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is there a medical condition that they actually say, hey, I think it's this?
I don't think they say.
Yeah.
I don't think that they would know in this time.
Of course, because it's the 1600s.
Right.
So she's sick, and there's actually a moment where Hamnet, her twin brother, makes a deal with her.
Oh, man.
Where he says, I could actually cheat death. What if I trick death? Because we're twins, and we dress up as each other all the time because we love pretending to be in father's plays. What if I tricked death and had him take me instead? And that's another scene where it's almost like a cute little oh, that's very sweet that he would think that. But now that we're introduced into the mysticism of this movie, it kind of opens a door of could you do that? Could you actually trick death into taking you instead? And it's a perfect time to mention that Jacoby Jupe. What are you doing, dude? Oh my God.
I think he should have been nominated for supporting actor.
I think that there should be and I think we're on our way. There should be a category of breakthrough performance.
Yeah.
Not newcomer, but breakthrough performance. So an older actor who just hasn't had the opportunity to have a role, absolutely crushes that. Or in this case, Jacoby Jupe, who's just heartbreaking in this movie.
This scene was so good. And everything that Jessie Buckley had done up to this point, I was very impressed by.
Yeah.
My emotions weren't snagged until Jacoby Jupe.
Yeah.
He's so good.
He's so good. And he actually dresses up like Judith and tries to cheat death. And we'll skip ahead a little bit here. He does. And Judith becomes better and she's healed, but he's not. And Hamnet actually dies. And this is the crux of everything else. Everything is now they've lost a child, and Will wasn't here for that to happen.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting thing that I'll talk a little bit later about, but the thing I want to get forward to is that it's the grief between Agnes and Will still going off to London and becoming, or, still being a playwright. And there's this animosity that builds in Agnes, and her brother Bartholomew is kind of saying the same thing of why can't you be there? And why isn't he here with you? And we're skipping ahead severely, but it gets to the point where she actually travels with Bartholomew to London, and they look for Shakespeare. They're looking for a man named Will Shakespeare.
Yeah.
They find him, but specifically there's a play that he put on, and they found a flyer for the tragedy of Hamlet, right? And this kind of brings in the last 15 minutes of the movie. And I kind of like to hear and talk about the last 15 minutes of this with you.
Yeah.
Because I think that the last 15 minutes of this movie are transcendent.
Yeah, I mean, when we started talking about Jacoby Jupe, I felt myself finding those emotions again a little bit.
I do think this is going to be an emotional conversation.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to thank you for saying his name, because one thing I forgot to mention is that when he actually passes, there's an incredible scene where it actually shows him somewhere and he's trapped, and he doesn't know necessarily how to get out, but he's calling for his mom. And that's really difficult, and you don't know where he is. There's woods and stuff that are trapped behind there.
Yep.
We'll find out where that is.
Yeah.
But again, that leads us to the last 50 minutes. Do you want me to talk through it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in. I'll interject.
Okay.
Now here and there.
So okay. I recently said goodbye to my dog.
Yeah.
Buckley. Wow, did not even piece that together. Jessie Buckley here. So this is a difficult thing to talk through, so we're going to talk through our emotions. So they go to London, and they go into the Round, which is where Shakespeare's plays happen. And up to this point, it's worth mentioning that the plays that he puts on are divine comedies, right? They're more humor, full of humor.
Yeah.
Agnes has this like animosity of like, oh, how could he go and continue to write these things and not like grieve with me here?
Right.
So they go and see this performance, and they can't catch Will beforehand, but they do see his apartment, and they see that his apartment is not lavish. He is living like basically by a fire in a bed, and he is just living bare bones as much as he can just to get this writing out. And they're confused as to why this is. He's the most known playwright in the town. So they watch his performance, and in his performance, they see that the tragedy of Hamlet is directly inspired by the loss of their son, and that he is not writing this comedy. He is writing this tragedy of everything he's experienced and all of everything that's led to this point. He writes the witches in as like, a nod to the mysticism of his wife. And he writes Hamlet as his son and Hamnet. One thing that I want to mention that I don't know if you know, we talked about this off pod, and I think you kind of, it seemed that you may not know this. The actor who plays Hamlet on the play is Noah Jupe, who is Jacoby's older brother.
Oh, okay.
So they are brothers
Nice.
in real life. Noah Jupe has been on screen before plenty of times. This is not what he's most known for. I know him from the movie Wonder with Owen Wilson and Julia Roberts.
Is he the boy?
That was Jacob Tremblay, but he's the bully. Like his friend who kind of like bullied him a little bit. He ended up being in a movie called White Bird it was a spinoff of Wonder. It was a weird conversation to go into, but Helen Mirren was in it, and it was like, hey, you shouldn't be a bully because the Holocaust was a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it's like,
yeah, I agree.
you're right, but like, I don't think we had to say it. So anyways, that's the whole thing. But Noah Jupe, not a stranger to the screen. Jacoby, a little bit more of a newcomer. But anyways, so there's that connection between Noah Jupe and Hamnet, Jacoby Jupe. But he's playing Hamlet on this play. And Will actually makes an appearance on screen as the ghost of Hamlet's father, correct?
I think so. This is one of those moments where I'm like, I wish I knew Shakespeare.
Yeah. So he makes an appearance, and he's actually on screen, and you can see Agnes actually kind of piecing together the idea of what's happening here, and she can see the heartbreak in Will, and Will actually kind of like make eye contact with her.
Yeah.
And she realizes that he has been grieving, and the way that he grieves is on paper, and he has to get this out, and he grieves differently than her, and she recognizes that. And she does push to the front of the audience. And it's also worth mentioning, a fun little thing is that she is the worst person to watch a movie with.
Yes.
For the first part of the movie, she's like, why are you saying my son's name like that? Stop saying my son's name like that.
Just
what's going on?
Full volume.
We're
just
like, girl, calm down.
pushing people.
This is a theater. But I mean, she's, grieving, and she's like torn at what's happening. But she pieces together very quickly what is happening, and she watches this production. And she watches the tragedy of Hamlet. And we don't have to go through what happens in the tragedy of Hamlet, but people are piecing it together. She watches Hamlet, stabbed and saying his goodbyes and doing his, parting his such sweet sorrow. Like he's quoting everything that's in the play. And the moment that absolutely destroyed me, and I imagine it's the same for you, is while he's passing, he reaches out. And Agnes actually reaches out and grabs his hand. And then everyone in the audience, again, not knowing who this woman is, reaches out their hand for him too. And everyone in the theater in the round is reaching out to him. This spoke to the grief that everyone can feel, the community that is felt in these emotions, and that we don't have to reserve ourselves to just being alone, that we can grieve together. And it takes, us writing our experiences into things and putting ourselves out there to connect with everyone. I thought this was absolutely remarkable.
Yeah.
This was something that absolutely destroyed me in theaters, and I was crying. I don't think it needed everything in it. We'll talk to that here in a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think that the performance that Jesse gives in this, I think Paul Mescal off screen as Will, watching her and watching everyone and realizing this, it was the perfect note, and everything was building to this absolute, I've made this reference and I don't mean it this way, but it does build to a punchline.
Yeah.
And it's not a punchline. It really is just an event, and it's building to this. And that event is perfect. And I absolutely love the last 15 to 20 minutes of this movie. It came at a time where we talked about theaters. We talked about the importance of theaters, and this is a movie that literally shows people going into the round, and that's when I started getting emotional.
Yeah.
Was even 400 years ago, people were getting together and communing over these stories.
Right.
And people expecting a comedy can still see this tragic story with no humor in it and still captivated. And I thought that was just so relevant to what's happening right now and what we've talked about. Netflix saying we don't have to play movies in theaters for more than 15 days. They've since gone back on that and said, okay, 45, which, thanks. But still, we're talking about like keeping theaters alive.
Right. Yeah, because that's the big thing is the community element of it. And I know that a lot of people get annoyed. They're like, well, what if Jessie Buckley shows up and she starts talking through the whole performance? That would be annoying. But I think that's what's so incredible about the end of this movie. Obviously, it's the finale to this story, and it explains all of William's grief. It explains, it gives closure to Jessie Buckley's character.
Yeah.
I mean, the performance of Noah Jupe here, when she reaches out and touches his hand, and you can see him start to cry as well. And he's touched by this community that has, like, the separation between audience and performer has just completely disappeared.
Yeah.
And now it is all one. In all of this, not only are you having this story resolved, but you're having this idea presented of, look at how important Shakespeare and his stories are. And now this is a culmination of all the things in his life that led to his greatness. Also, this is how important theater, whether it's live action theater or movies or whatever, or just art in general.
Yeah.
This is how important this is. It's all of these things all at once. And I'm sure you've seen the conversation with Ethan Hawke talking about art and poetry.
Yeah.
Where he's saying, why is poetry important? Maybe you don't sit around and read poetry all day, but let's say your father passes away or you're going through a breakup, and you read this particular poet's work, and suddenly you can connect with that, and you're able to work through, okay, this is a person who has experienced this before, and they're able to put into words this exact feeling that I'm experiencing now. I know this feels like an obvious thing to discuss and talk about, but this stuff is important.
Yeah.
And this movie so perfectly encompasses and captures all of that in the last 15 minutes. And boy howdy, was I a wreck.
Yeah, no, same. I mean, I was absolutely wrecked by this. I mentioned previously that when Hamnet passes, that it's shown that he's trapped somewhere. And this scene at the end where everyone's connecting and Agnes has an opportunity to say goodbye to her son, right? Like by reaching out and like holding Noah Jupe's hand.
Yeah.
And she has the chance to say goodbye. It's shown that, and you start piecing this together when you see the actual round, but the stage that was built there is where Hamnet actually was trapped. And then he was trapped on stage. And it wasn't until he was brought to life through this performance and then connected with his mother again and everyone in that round that he was able to be freed and escape that stage.
Yeah, he's like heading towards a door. And it almost has like the end of Return of the King, where Frodo is about to get on the ships to sail west.
Right.
Because during that early dream sequence or whatever it is, when he's walking away and you don't know where he's going, he goes to turn around and there's like a fear and a worry and an anxiety in his face. Mm-hmm. Once this performance happens, very similar to Frodo at the end, he turns around and his discomfort in his face fades away and he smiles back at his mother.
Yeah.
And just he walks through that door and there's peace. Bah.
I know, man. I know. And I'm tearing up talking about it now because now obviously, with Buckley passing, it's even more prevalent to talk about that loss and everything. But there's one other thing that I thought of after watching the movie, and that's the door that you're talking about that he walks through is just this black hole. It's a void. Mm-hmm. And it's in the middle of the stage, but the backdrop of that stage is the woods.
Right.
And that calls back to when Susanna was first born, the hole underneath the tree. And it's just this black void under the tree. And that's, to me, that's him returning to the earth.
Right.
And there's such a meaning to that I absolutely loved with the mysticism. And, this could have been capped with Jesse and Paul, Agnes, and Will embracing and like reconnecting and like, saying like, hey, I didn't know you were grieving this way or anything. And it doesn't. And it just cuts and it lets you piece that together. And I loved that. And I just loved sitting in like, the credits with those feelings. This is an opportunity for us to stop recapping the movie and talk a little bit about nominations and the fact that original score is a very important thing. But specifically with this scene, there's some controversy because Max Richter, who is nominated for original score, did include his own original song On the Nature of Daylight. during this.
Right.
Otherwise, throughout this movie, original composition for Hamnet itself, and then this song comes on. This is a song that people have heard before, right? This has been used plenty of times. My favorite time that was used was Arrival, Denis Villeneuve's movie at the end of that picture. Expertly used. I think it's extremely emotional of a song, but there are some concerns about including this in original score because it is a song that existed before. Even though Max Richter is the composer, that it did exist before Hamnet. It actually, believe it or not, actually caused Johan Johansson's score for Arrival in 2016 to be disqualified from the Oscars because it featured that song. But now it can be included, and I assume that the caveat to that is that the original composer was also the composer for the rest of the score. Kind of a strange thing. I think there's a little bit of controversy. Not really. It's not a big deal at the end of the day, but it's just a little strange that it would cause it. I don't think it's necessary to have included this song at the end of that. I think any score that you would have put, I think that what's happening on screen between these actors is very much the emotion behind it.
Right.
The song just kind of feels a little more like, hey, you're supposed to feel sad right now.
Right.
And it doesn't have to. But it doesn't ruin the scene. I want to make that important. It does not ruin the scene. It just feels a little out of place.
The thing, I was just looking it up. I know there's a requirement where there's like a minimum percentage that the score has to be original to qualify for the nomination. And like when it's a sequel or from a franchise, that number increases.
Right.
So it's not like this is controversial because it would disqualify it from the nominee. This is interesting because I was not familiar with this song prior to this.
Interesting.
I had heard it, but I didn't recognize it when I saw it for Hamnet. So I don't know that the music, like, I'm sure it subconsciously played a huge role in like the emotion I was feeling during the final scene, but I don't attribute this song to like, oh, this is what did it for me, you know? And it wasn't until afterwards, after I had seen the movie and it received the nomination, that I'm scrolling through TikTok and I see all of these people talking about On the Nature of Daylight and being like, you know, I don't think it was necessary and blah, 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 that I started to agree with them. And I was like, yeah, he probably should have written something original. And I don't really like that it was used, but I also don't really care.
It doesn't really matter. I mean, I say controversial, and it's kind of like, you know, you stole the last M&M that I wanted. It's like, I think it's controversial, but at the end of the day, it doesn't make you a bad person. Like, it's just a thing.
Especially because it's the original composer. So it's like
100%.
If anybody's going to use it, it might as well be you.
Yeah. So like, it's completely fine. It's just also like, hey, you might have been like close to a perfect movie if like it just didn't feel like a little tacked on at the end.
Yeah.
Because I think I was so immersed into the story at this point that song, if you're familiar with it, does take you out of it just a little bit, right?
Sure.
So it's like a slight mark. It's not like, you know, hey, this movie could have been amazing and now it's terrible. Like, it's just a slight little thing. But I say that because it was so close to being an absolutely perfect ending.
Yeah.
And not even ending, but like, you know, 15 minutes. Like, just absolutely groundbreaking. And it got to a point where I told Taylor afterwards, and I was like, hey, just that movie absolutely floored me. And, you know, it was incredible. She's like, great, should I see it? And I was like, God, no. The reason I say that is it is extremely devastating for period. Actually, it's devastating. It's a devastating movie, but much as evidenced by what we've talked about with this final scene, that whole sequence, it shows that those emotions are like necessary.
Yeah.
And we should be feeling these things, right? We should be emotional and have tears and like talk about these things, because that community and like getting together and talking about these things is what keeps us like connecting to each other. And I just was so absolutely moved by that. And to your point, I was a wreck.
Yeah. No, I was too. You know, going back to the score real quick and On the Nature of Daylight, I do wonder if maybe there was a conscious decision to use something that was already established in a way of being like, yes, Shakespeare has all of these established works that have just transcended, you know, just him and that work, and kind of live with us almost beyond him. And maybe this particular piece of music is similar in that way. Like, we are familiar with it, you know, and it's been used to capture this feeling of grief or loss or just sadness in general in all of the things it was used for. Arrival, as you mentioned, but also Shutter Island, an episode of Castle Rock, The Handmaid's Tale, which is very devastating.
I forgot Shutter Island.
The Last of Us,
Yeah.
in a very heartbreaking scene as well. So I wonder if part of that is kind of a mirror of Shakespeare's work itself.
Like the legacy.
Yes, like let's pull another legacy piece to use.
It's a great point. I'm sure that, I mean, Chloe Zhao is such an important name, and like everything she does feel intentional.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there was a meaning behind it, and not just like, hey, if you want to include that song that you did, cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's intention behind it, so you're probably 100% right. I don't think it translates 100%.
Sure.
So I think that stops it from working, but that could very well be the case.
I'm just grateful I wasn't familiar with the piece.
Yeah.
Because I think it would have really messed with me.
Taking
a
you out of
little
it. And maybe because I've seen all those things, like, you know, I love Arrival so much. It's in my top 4 on Letterboxd. I do love Shutter Island, despite the needing to bring out a whiteboard to explain what happens and why you all wet, baby. But even in spite of that, you know, I was kind of like, oh yeah, I know this song. And it was like, just like felt the rest of my emotions.
Yeah.
It didn't take me out of it, but it was just kind of like, oh, clocked that, but you know, continue to feel the way I feel. Just absolutely devastating. And I love its inclusion here. I think because of its final 20 minutes, it absolutely deserves a spot in Best Picture for me as a nominee.
Yeah.
I do think it's in third place, right? From like what we've talked about, and we'll continue to talk about that. But one thing that cannot be denied is just Jessie Buckley's performance here. Like
100%.
throughout this movie, she's given so much to do, and she absolutely does everything perfect.
Yeah, and I think you can take individual scenes and kind of be like, okay, that was incredible, but wait till you see this. And
Sure.
and there's so much of that. So she has been nominated before.
Yeah.
She was nominated for Best Supporting Actress for the 2021 film The Lost Daughter, which I believe is the Olivia Wilde. No. Maggie Gyllenhaal. That's
Correct.
what it is.
Yeah.
Yes. I wish I could say I remembered more about that movie, but regardless, she's been nominated before. She got her start with the BBC talent show I'd Do Anything. Did you know she's like a thoroughly established singer?
I did not know that.
Yeah, I had no idea. She just like put out an album not too long ago.
Wow.
I had no idea.
Okay.
So super cool. She was in the HBO series Chernobyl as well.
She was.
I want to see that so bad. I haven't.
You haven't
yet.
seen it?
No.
Man.
I'm a monster.
That's Craig Mazin, who brought Last of Us on screen. He did it, and I thought that was incredible. Skarsgård is in it.
Yeah.
Jared Harris. Wow, there's some. Yeah, I'm very excited for you to see it.
Yeah, really.
I'm familiar with Buckley in a different way. She was. I've seen her in other things, but she was in Alex Garland's Men a couple years back.
Oh yes.
And say what you want about that movie, and it does earn those opinions. I thought she was remarkable in that, and I loved her performance.
I haven't seen it.
Another movie where music goes a long way in carrying that, but
Yeah.
she's fantastic in it. Not even close to the work she has to do, or sorry, not even close to the experiences that she has to portray on screen with Hamnet.
Right.
Just way more work that's given in Hamnet than in Men. But she is an incredible performer. And not to speak lowly of any other nominee on this category, it's just having seen those performances, with the exception of Rose Byrne and If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, it's such a different performance. We talk about Kate Hudson being nominated for Song Sung Blue, and she actually does good work in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's a movie where you watch the trailer and you're like, what's going on here? There's so much more going on. But she does good work in that. You just can't compare it to
Yeah.
like the level of what Jessie Buckley has to do with Hamnet.
Yeah, I saw an interview. Paul Mescal and Jessie Buckley were together, and Paul Mescal was just like raving about Jessie Buckley, which is so cool because I think he knows like,
It's her time.
yeah, we both did great and stuff, but did you guys see her? Like,
Yeah.
incredible. Yeah, the cool thing about this, we just talked about Frankenstein last week, and
I know where you're going with this.
Jacob Elordi was great, as we said. You especially said
I
that.
had said, correct.
But the cast as a whole kind of felt lacking to me, even though it did have like an all-star cast with Oscar Isaac and Christoph Waltz, Mia Goth. However, with this movie, while there are some names that I'm less familiar with,
Jacoby
Jupe, yeah, everyone in this film did such an incredible job, and they really delivered what was necessary to the overall feel of the movie. And this is the first time that we're talking about a cast being nominated with the new casting category.
Right.
So bravo to Nina Gold,
Yeah. crushed it.
It's so good.
Really inspired decision to cast Noah Jupe as Jacoby Jupe's
I love
actor.
that little bit of trivia that everybody knew but me.
Well, and like that's the thing. Is like, yeah, it's fun, right, to be able to do that, and like it's a nice trivia thing. But also behind the scenes, it also kind of it works behind the scenes, but I think it works on screen as well.
Yes,
because then you get to see once Noah Jupe walks on screen and he's bleached his hair, like he has blonde in his hair now to appear more like Hamnet. You see Jesse Buckley kind of like immediately clock him.
Yes,
as like well, you're older than my son is, but like you're supposed to be my son,
right?
And for her to like recognize her son in Noah Jupe's performance just again speaks volumes to like why they would want to cast Noah Jupe as his counterpart when he's his brother.
It's funny because in the film it almost shows exactly why the casting category is important, because William Shakespeare was probably like, I need someone that really looks like my son.
Yeah,
I'll pick that guy.
Two things. One, that's not where I thought you were going with the casting thing. Because you mentioned how last week we talked about Frankenstein, and you talk about Jessie Buckley working with Maggie Gyllenhaal. She actually is going to be working with Maggie Gyllenhaal again in a month on The Bride, where she portrays the Bride of Frankenstein.
That's going to be weird.
It's going to be weird.
I'm so excited.
I do think it's very funny that she like gets to be, I mean, she's probably going to win the Oscar for this.
Yes.
And within a month, she's like, I'll see you guys as the bride.
Right.
And on screens. The other thing I wanted to mention here is I read something behind the scenes where it was written into the script that when Will actually says goodbye to Hamnet for the last time, it's not, Hamnet's not sick at this point or anything, but he's just leaving for London.
Right.
There's a scene where they're both in the corner of a building, and Hamnet's going one way and Will's going the other, and they say goodbye to each other 3 times. Right, they're like, bye, bye. In the tragedy of Hamlet, that was written that way because he actually says goodbye 3 times when the ghost is disappearing. Man. So there's like little things that they like wrote into the script that was from like the play. I really, really like how they connected everything. But again, it's not a movie about Shakespeare. Like Shakespeare's kind of like happening in the background, and yeah, it's inspired by these things, but it really is more the grief.
Yeah.
And Paul does such great work in this movie as Will, but his is more of a quiet, like, stoic, like I put it all on the paper.
Right.
Jesse is the one feeling this out loud. And that's why hers is a little bit louder. There's more to work with. There's a little bit more of that grief because, they were born and he wasn't there. Like she was doing this on her own. So she feels alone in that. But then to feel connected, not just with, the earth. You talk about casting, Emily Watson as Will's mother.
Yeah. She's
more of like grounded, like, you got to do things the right way. You got to live on earth. And she has this great scene with Jessie Buckley when she's pregnant and going through labor, and she's like concerned, talking her through like, that's not what matters now. Like you have to be here. Like now we're talking about the kids. And she helps her be more like connected, like into reality and be on earth and just like, in her head with Mystic and whatnot. So I thought that was really well done. She could have like made fun of her, but instead it was like, I'm going to help you get back to earth and be here for what's important.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so well done. So the cast across the board, fantastic work. I like Joe Alwyn as Bartholomew. He has a little bit more of the cynic role to play, but I thought he did that very well. Loved the casting, and I love that this happened at a time where they get to be nominated for something like that. A historic nomination for that.
Man, there's part of me that's like, give him the Oscar for casting.
But we'll talk about other movies that might be deserving of that too.
Yeah. Did you see what Nina Gold is known for?
I feel like I did, but I forgot. Go ahead.
So her first big thing was she casted for the HBO series Rome.
Oh.
And then that led to her being the casting director for Game of Thrones.
Oh, wow.
As far as films go, she did what is Back to Black? Why can't I remember her name?
Amy Winehouse?
Amy Winehouse, yeah. She did the Amy Winehouse film. Andor, Baby Reindeer, The Day of the Jackal, 3 Body Problem, all heavy hitters from like
all the
recent
past 3 years, yeah.
As far as the Oscars go, The King's Speech, Les Mis, The Theory of Everything, 1917, The Power of the Dog, Conclave.
Well, I mean, you talk about best casting. The Conclave right there.
She also did five Star Wars films.
Oh, I mean, there you go. Yeah. It helps with Andor, too. She knows her way around casting for a period piece. That's for sure.
Yeah. So it's so cool because you look at that list, including all of these movies that have been nominated for Best Picture at prior Academy Award years. Now, finally, in the year 2026, we get the opportunity to celebrate this not often talked about role in filmmaking.
It's fantastic. And I say historic, and I mean that because it's the first time this has appeared, and it's something that's come a long way. Important to note that it doesn't mean best cast, right? It means best casting, which is why Nina Gold is nominated here and not the entire cast themselves.
Right.
But obviously it speaks volumes of the work that they do in this movie that the casting is nominated and acknowledged this way. We talked about original score. We talked about best casting, something we can gloss over very easily, unfortunately. Costume design, production design, given that this is a time period of the 1600s, makes sense that costume design and production design makes sense. I think for the round itself, production design is an easy layup of why it would be nominated. We'll see its chances later on.
Yeah.
Best adapted screenplay, we talked about how Maggie O'Farrell wrote the original book for this and helped Chloe Zhao actually come up with the screenplay for this. So something I want to talk about with adapted screenplay a little bit later. Please remind me. We'll talk about that and how it's available to everyone. And of course, best actress with Jessie Buckley.
Yeah.
Chloe Zhao for best director. What do you think about her chances here?
I don't know. You're just asking my opinion of whether she deserves it or not.
100%.
I think it's so good, man. Yeah. This is a great movie. I don't know if this is the year for her.
It's not.
The more I talk about this movie, though, the more I'm like, this might be one of the ones that I leave 2025 behind, and this is one I take with me as just like this is important. This was solid. This was great.
Important is a great word for it. I don't think it's my favorite. There's a reason it didn't crack my top 10 in that, but profound is something. I think that it was also very important for Chloe Zhao to get a nomination like this because I think a lot of people dragged her name a little bit after the Eternals, which I still think is a completely unrealistic thing to do. Even if you don't like that movie, like, it's fine. She was a great director for it to kind of show, like, with gods and talking about like their place on Earth. She's a very big, like, believer in like Return to the Earth and like the mysticism that's talked about in Hamnet. So for her to get a nomination here after the Eternals, but like having done great work with Nomadland, I think it's really important to show like she is still a mainstay in that. So great for her. Very happy for her nomination. I do think that this is Paul Thomas Anderson's category, and I think if maybe anything, Ryan Coogler is a conversation to be had there too. But absolutely deserving of a nomination, and in any other year would have been a main contender of it. But I agree with you. I think it's not her time.
Yeah.
Or I should say this movie should be something she'd win for. I just don't think it's the time for it.
Right. Yeah. The wrong year.
The wrong year. That's the way to put it.
Just two quick things. You brought up the production design. Fiona Crombie.
Yeah.
She was previously nominated for The Favorite in 2018. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
As well as Alice Felton that did the set decoration. Also period pieces, so you get a good idea, a good feel of things there. And then Małgosia Terzanska. Interesting thing here, just for funsies, did the costumes for Pearl and X.
Oh, wow.
I love that red dress in Pearl.
Yeah.
But also Train Dreams. She worked on costumes.
Oh, very cool.
Which, of course, we'll be talking about in March.
Weeks?
Yeah, a couple weeks. So I wonder if her name will pop up again. I don't think that was nominated for costumes. But now you at home know that she also worked on it.
It was not.
Okay.
One thing I want to mention here before we start wrapping things up, one little detail that I liked in this that doesn't mean a ton, but I thought was very interesting. Filmed in sequence.
Oh.
And I think that's really important because a movie like this, a story like this, everything that comes before leads to the next.
Yes.
So I think to have felt all of those things and lead that to the next scene is really important. It kind of takes you out of it a little bit because you start thinking like, well, hey, there's movies that aren't filmed in sequence and how do they do that? And that's so difficult. Here, I think it's really important that everyone feels the events of what happened previously, especially Jessie Buckley. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that helped her a good bit too. But interesting that it was filmed in sequence.
Yeah, I feel like every time I hear about a movie being filmed in sequence, not every time, but a lot of the times it has to do with like the costume or the physicality.
Or like a Boyhood
changes.
type situation.
Yeah, like you're actually seeing physical changes that have to stay consistent. And in this particular scenario, in this movie, it's like you have to be able to see the emotional consistency. And like in an action movie, the scars have to match up and things. In this, there's like emotional scars that you need to stay consistent with. Boy, this is a good movie.
It's great. I really enjoyed my time with it. And, we just got off a run of we started talking about Begonia, which is a great introduction to the Oscars.
Yeah.
And then we talked about F1 and Frankenstein,
Boom, boom.
which, Vroom vroom indeed. At least fair to say towards the bottom of the 10 for us.
Yeah.
I still think, I'll keep saying this every time we talk about how those movies are at the bottom of the tier. Still a fantastic lineup, all things considered, that I'm very proud of. But this really is an achievement. And I absolutely loved my time with this. It's very difficult and it's not an easy movie to watch. But, as we talked about, it's really important that we have evidence of how important it is, that we have conversations and we keep talking with each other about these really difficult topics, and we have that community. So very, very prescient time for it to come out and tell a story, although it might not be about theater, very much, the metaphor of community and storytelling.
Yeah. It is about theater in a way, both the live action and the screen, the silver screen.
Absolutely. Do you remember what I texted you when I got out of the movie?
I don't.
I was texting you something about you got to see Hamnet as soon as possible because we got to talk about that ending. Because just with the theater and everything we were talking about at the time, it felt so relevant. And I remember just texting you and I was like, yeah, we're going to be talking about this one for sure.
I remember I saw a double feature that day. I think I saw Sentimental Value and then Hamnet.
You did?
Yeah. And
wow.
I remember I had left the theater after Sentimental Value to go get something to eat. I was eating in my car, just hanging out. And right before the movie started and I got out of my car, I was like, maybe I'll just go home. I kind of want to get out of here. Man, am I glad I went in. Obviously, I would have seen it anyway, but in that moment, I was just like, this is important.
Yeah. I hope that you saw our post that we made earlier before this episode came out, where we talked about how Hamnet is coming back into theaters for 1 week only, starting on February 6th, and it lasted a week. And it was Dolby specifically. Dolby's not how I saw it. I just did see it regular, I think laser. But if you can see this and you haven't seen it yet, or you want to see it again, we hope that you did have the ability to go see that. We did post about it, so hopefully you did do that. But worth seeing in theaters, absolutely. If not, I do not believe it's on video on demand just yet. So
yeah, we'll see where it ends up. You want to get into ratings?
I do. Let me pull up my rating here. I think I know where I landed on it, but it's always nice to check to see. It's nice talking about these too, because sometimes it changes our ratings a little bit when we actually get to discuss it.
Like Frankenstein.
I saw my feed shows here that you re-rated or rewatched. It has that little logo, the circle.
Yeah.
Okay, I got mine. Hey, look, we're the
Did
same.
we match?
Yeah, we match again.
3, 2, 1. 4 stars.
4 stars across the board on this one.
Hey, I think I would like this more on a rewatch.
I wonder about watching this at home, because I think this was another one that watching it in a theater to see the importance of theater was a very big one.
Yeah.
I think it's more sharing it now. Like if I share it with Taylor.
Yes.
But it's a tough one, Like Taylor and I, we've been trying to start a family for a long time, so this is a difficult movie to talk about with the idea of loss and everything. So it is a difficult watch. It's not easy. But I think that makes it all the more important.
Totally.
To experience at least once.
Yeah. I think the slower pacing at the beginning of the movie too, not having an expectation of, I want things to be happening. I think a rewatch would allow me to just kind of sit with that and take all of that in.
Totally. I also wonder how much it leads to scenes that happened earlier, where there's little, things of yet to come.
Yes.
So I wonder.
And how much you can see leading up to the final performance, where you're like, oh, okay, so that's where they got this and that. And you really see the culmination of everything on stage at the end. Wow.
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
Absolutely. I'm so thrilled that we got to cover something like this and see it in theaters.
Yeah. Real quick, I'm going to plug the Patreon now, and then we can get into the double feature. We are running a promotion this month. We have a community Discord where you can jump in, talk movies with us, the Death Race that we're covering there, just movies we watch for funsies.
Framed. We do Framed every once in a while.
Yeah, we do Framed. That's fun. Usually, that's you gain access to that at the paid tier on Patreon, but we do have a promotion running until the end of February, where if you just give us a follow on Patreon for free, doesn't cost you anything, you will get an invite to the Discord. So if you want to be part of the discussion on not just these movies, but all movies, did you see Return to Silent Hill? I want to hear about it.
No, you don't.
I do. I want to see it. I don't know why, but I do. But you can check that out over at patreon.com/OUTAO podcast. We also plan on doing a watch along. That will be Friday, February 27th at 8 p.m. and we'll be watching Sinners. But I'm also doing my Oscar Death Race recap, where every every week, I'm going over what movies I've watched on the lead up to completing this 50 movie Oscar death race. So I'll have done 3 episodes of that at this point.
Also, one last thing, I want to make sure I give a shout out here. I have been told that there are some there's some Slack channels that are dedicated to listening to Once Upon a Time at the Oscars and talking about that. I just want to shout out any Slack channels that exist out there to talk about Once Upon a Time at the Oscars. And thanks for listening. Very cool to hear that like other people are building communities. And I think a really important episode to talk about like building communities to like talk about this stuff. So Patreon, Slack channels, whatever it might be. Thank you for giving us a follow and talking about this and continuing to talk about movies.
100%. Man, when you told me that, I was like, oh, you mean people are talking about us? Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, I was informed about it and I was like, oh, that's really neat. I'm trying to play it cool where I'm not just like, me? Us?
Go.
Like, thanks, man.
Hey.
Hey.
What am I doing? Double feature?
Let's talk double feature.
Yeah. Let me throw something out real quick.
Yeah.
I was talking with some friends, and they had listened to the Begonia episode, and they threw out a double feature for that. 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Great rec.
Isn't that awesome?
Wow.
So
I wish I would
good.
have thought of that.
Such a good
I'm
one.
still proud of teaching Mrs. Tingle, but I wish I would have thought of that.
Yeah. Shout out to Victoria. What a great double feature recommendation.
Wow, Victoria, you crushed that.
As we like to say, mute that, hit that all day. It's an inside joke.
Okay.
She'll get it.
When you said we, I was like, I've never said that before.
And you never will.
I will now.
But yeah, let's talk our double feature for Hamnet.
How you feeling? You want to go?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay.
I'm excited. So this is another film that is just driven by an incredible female lead. It also deals with the loss of a child, with motherhood. It opens with like a 10 to 15 minute long one take of a miscarriage. It's heavy. It's very heavy.
Okay.
But this is going to be the Vanessa Kirby-led film Pieces of a Woman.
Yeah.
This would not be a great double feature. It'd be hard. But that's an incredible movie. Her performance in that is I don't know, just her and Jessie Buckley. I think that makes sense to me.
No, it does. Absolutely.
Sorry, I just got sad.
Yeah. I mean, I think you just depressed yourself at your own double feature. I'm great rec. I haven't seen it, but I'm familiar with her work in that.
Yeah.
I've heard about that, and I love Vanessa Kirby. So great shout out. That came out 6 years ago or so.
I don't know if it was that long ago. I think it was
More recent.
2020 or later.
Okay, sounds about right.
Yeah.
Love Vanessa Kirby. We are a Vanessa Kirby household. Mine is very similar. I continue the trend of loss and grief and what that can do. I decided to do a little bit more of the are you a Hamnet girly or a this movie boy? You take the pick. I went with Manchester by the Sea by Kenneth Lonergan.
Oh.
Came out in 2016. Stars Casey Affleck. He's brought back to Manchester by the loss of his brother. He's tasked with raising his nephew, and coming back to Manchester, he's forced to face some events that happened previously with his ex, Michelle Williams, the loss of a child, and the grief that he feels in that. I think his grief is a little bit more of a production, I guess is the way to put it. I think what Jessie Buckley is a little more internalized, but the way that Casey Affleck brings that grief to screen very similarly was very devastating at the time. I would also not recommend this double feature while recommending this double feature. We'll call this the Kleenex You Okay There Bud double feature. Both of these, I think it's important that, or it's very fair or fitting that we both picked a movie that's difficult to watch, but does feature and showcase these incredible performances of grief. Because at the end of the day, that's Hamnet. Is just a remarkable performance by Jessie Buckley of like grief and the connection that we have to each other in community.
And to art.
Yeah. Less Manchester by the Sea with art. That's more,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Once again, you've picked a movie that I haven't seen yet. You're great at that.
There's a GIF that I think Manchester by the Sea will be remembered for forever that I'll send you. We'll talk about off pod. But other than that, it is a good watch. But I don't know if it's one that in 2026, 10 years later, you're like, you have to watch Manchester by the Sea.
Wasn't it nominated for Best Picture?
It was.
Well, I'll definitely be watching it then.
Well, that's true.
I'm curious how this is going to work now on the Letterboxd lists. If we're putting a double feature pick
with a best
with
picture.
the best picture, and
know
then
what's
when we
gonna
get to it
happen?
later,
What am I going to pick for Manchester by the Sea?
there you go. That
I'm just going to pick Hamnet.
yeah, but how's that gonna? You know what I mean? Like logistically, can I add a movie to a list twice?
Yeah, I think so.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think I can. I don't know that this is a conversation to have on pod, but anyway.
Well, maybe when we talk about this in 9 years,
Yeah.
we'll just,
We'll
I'll
figure it out.
I'll go back and change the double feature.
Yeah. Or I'll just put a note in there and be like, I don't know, you guys
Manchester
figure it
goes
out.
here.
But
Maybe a sequel will come out. We can put Manchester by the Sea too.
yeah. Oh, no, I can't think of anything clever. Anyway, anything else you want to say about
That's
Hamnet?
about it. No,
Sweet.
I'm just
love it.
Thrilled. Loved this movie.
So good. So good. Everyone should see it. This is my first of this year, I think, where I'm like, everyone should see this one.
Absolutely.
I love Begonia. But
I think that continues for the most part. We'll see because we're seeing The Secret Agent tonight,
we are.
so we'll be knocking that out.
Yeah, and then you'll be done. And I'll be
We'll be done with the Best Picture
54%.
nominees, but I will be done. That's true.
Hey, if you want to talk about this movie or any other film, send us an email over at outaaopodcast@gmail.com. I want to know where you are with your death race, if you are participating in that. Bryce, not you. I know you've completed it like on day 2.
Keep letting us know, Bryce. I appreciate you.
Give us a like, a follow, a subscription, and what's the other thing? Leave a review. Rate and review.
Rate and review, please.
Yeah, please do that. That
On
helps us.
Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, wherever you listen.
Yeah, that helps us tremendously. That's all I've got. I'm starting to like mix my words now. I don't know what's happening.
I always do that. That's my secret cap. I'm always mixing my words.
So until next time, as always, I'm your host, Kyle,
And I have no talent to waiting.
and we'll see you at the movies.